Welcome, moms. Welcome to Inside the Moms Club. I'm your host, Monica Samuels, and today you will see something a bit different. I have my co-host, Julie Orchid here, and we have an additional co-host.
Yes!
For time we have three, Constanza Montalva, who's another friend of ours, and I can tell you how this all came about. So a couple of weeks ago, or a month ago, when we were scheduling our shows, Julie informs me that she is going to hike the Grand Canyon, and she had prepared for it by going up like 2 or 3 flights of stairs. That was her preparation.
As I like to say.
That's right. And so
how
then,
not to do it.
Exactly. And so then you told me, well, they're not going to, they said that I have to hike back out, that there's no helicopter rescue. There's no way I can get out except on my own 2 feet. So I said, I think we might need to have a backup co-host here. So Julie made it. Here she is.
I did make it. My gosh, it was quite the feat, I will say. But what beauty and wonder that I got to see. And that's the nice side of the story.
Well, I am.
And in case she didn't make it, that's why I'm here.
That's right. Yes, and we are so happy to have you here.
Thank
for
you,
sure.
Mama. Thank you.
But no, I'm so in awe of you that you did that.
Well, thanks.
I mean, I'm in awe of you, and also think, really, Julie? I mean,
I did think about you in particular on this hike, and I was like, I'm not sure Monica would want to do this.
No.
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot for sure.
The last time you took a hike like that, I was down on the beach on the Amalfi Coast, having a limoncello.
Was I with you?
Yes, you were. And we
course.
were looking up in the mountains, and there was Julie somewhere. And every once in a while, she would show up with her hiking gear and stuff because they would hike down the
highly recommend the Pathway of the Gods as well as the Grand Canyon.
That is.
But I have to tell you something about, the Grand Canyon, that it was definitely mind over matter.
Sure.
And something that we should all practice is like mindfulness. I definitely had to reach deep into something that was not even, in the physical realm for me to get out of there. Because I'm really not the person that should be doing the Grand Canyon. In fact, one person on the trip goes, how'd you get on this trip? And I was like, this is not the time to be asking
No,
me
you
that.
had it in you.
Well,
we all have it in us, I think. I really do.
And we have a short video that you sent of the beginning of the trip because you traveled on the week when there was massive snow going through the West. In fact, there was a tragedy related to that with a bunch of moms, actually.
Yes, there was.
And so, but there was 50-mile-an-hour winds, blowing ice and snow.
Zero visibility at the beginning.
And you sent a message to all of our friends that said, basically, I thought the message was, hey, the trip's been canceled and I'm going to a spa. And I thought, oh, perfect, lucky her.
Listen.
There's a spa that looks at the rim of the Grand Canyon.
Well, they took a vote. They're like, anybody who doesn't want to go, what are you going to say? What would you have said, Costanza?
I would have stuck it out.
Yeah, totally.
I really do. Again, mind over matter. You have it in you, girl. You've made it this far. Take it home.
It doesn't mean inside I wasn't freaking out.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
So that was last week. I am much more comfortable today.
We're all proud of you, Julie.
We really are so impressed.
Well, thanks. And nature does something to you.
Nature does.
It really takes, a time to breathe and soak in life in a different way. And it helps you defeat a lot of things that are hard to do in life.
You couldn't have said it better to introduce our guests.
I'm
so
so
today, let's
excited.
keep in mind that children today are experiencing record levels of anxiety and emotional stress, as we know well from our own children. Inspired by the tragic loss of her son Blake to pediatric brain cancer, our guest has written The Nature of Change, Lessons of Determination, Resilience, and Hope from the Outside World, which taps into the growing movement around mindfulness for kids. Please welcome CNN National Correspondent René Marsh. Welcome to the Moms Club, Renee. We are so thrilled to have you today.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me. And I was just listening to Julie talking about just being mindful and one with nature, and that really resonated with me.
Yeah, it really
there's
is powerful.
Not many more perfect places to go do that than the Grand Canyon. That's going to be an extraordinary trip. So tell us, what inspired you to write The Nature of Change?
So, for people who don't know my personal story, I became a mom in 2019, my very firstborn, Blake. And I mean, we all know how motherhood just transforms you. You are a different person. There's the you before and the you after. And I certainly experienced that, which was the deepest, purest love that you can experience for another human being. Like, that is it. But unfortunately, Blake was diagnosed with brain cancer at just 9 months, and he fought such a great battle. And we lost him just about a month after his second birthday. And that moment in my life, honestly, the saying that the bottom drops out, like that was literally my moment of the bottom dropping out for me. And I found myself just sitting in my backyard, really in zombie mode for many, many days at a time, just looking, staring into the void, and really trying to make sense of the world that I felt like I no longer understood. Like, why would this happen to this child? Why would this happen to my child? And in those moments of just sitting in nature, I received the most profound messages. And in many ways, when I look back, it was like my grief paralyzed me enough to be still enough to receive those messages, whether it was the trees losing it all in the fall. They didn't fall over. They were standing tall despite losing everything. Or whether it was watching a limb on one of the trees in my backyard just buckle under the weight of massive snowstorm we had seen that year. And I watched that dangling limb and I kind of left it there, probably because I saw myself in that broken limb. And that spring, I thought the limb was dead, quite honestly. To my surprise, it was sprouting new leaves. And in that moment, I felt like the message was clear. In your brokenness, you can still grow, you can still bloom. And so I received a lot of messages like that during my time outside with nature. And it was the most difficult thing I had ever dealt with, but those moments gave me the hope that I needed for those moments. And so this book that I wrote, Nature of Change, it's really just my hope that we equip our kids at a very early age. At least we start the process of equipping them with how to deal with the challenges that life guarantees. I mean, I don't know many people who go through life and nothing bad has happened to them. And if you do, bravo to you. But I mean, I think that's the exception versus the rule. And so I have a big mom heart. I love kids a lot. And so this is my effort as a mom in wanting to protect them best that we can. And we protect through preparation. So how can we prepare them mentally for those challenges? And I feel like the lessons of hope, determination, and resilience are a good place to start. And those are the lessons that we have within this book that uses nature as a metaphor for what is really some complex concepts to try to teach a toddler or a young child, but it uses nature to do that.
Yeah, I absolutely love your book, and it's good for children and adults. And as I was
Yeah.
looking, I was reading it, and I was telling Constanza and Julie, they know this. In my front yard, in my house, there is a giant tree that evidently was hit by lightning, I guess, early in its time, and it's got pretty much a stump. And this one branch grew out of the stump, and the builder of the house built for it a brick enclosure so that it could lean on it to grow.
Oh.
And the tree is huge now, and it is gorgeous in the certain times of the year when when it blooms. And I was like, that's a good lesson for if I could tell a child, look at this tree.
Yeah.
This tree needed a little help,
Hmm.
but look at it now. And I mean, you can take that all through nature. And Julie and I know from our own kids, they graduated together in 2020.
Mhm.
That was a rough year. I mean, they had no graduation, they had no prom, and my son was feeling very sorry for himself. A lot of those kids
Right.
had a lot of anxiety. And I said, I know this is hard, but imagine yourself as a 19-year-old in 1941 when World War II breaks out. I mean, your life changed, but you weren't expecting that. So there are just so many great lessons that, I mean, I love that you wrote this because it's just resonates so much, obviously, with me and I think with so many people.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I think that the resilience part, Renee, these kids that are on social media. So our kids are raised in a different, time. So in addition to that, having something to lean on, how do you like for resilience and social media because they are bombarded constantly all day, and even though most parents are talking about it and bringing it up. I mean, what is the message that you want to send to these younger children about being, resilient in life and, how do we teach them that to not look at, what they're being bombarded with?
And that's the other like secondary thing with this book. I think like one, you get these lessons, which I feel like whether it's resilience or hope, these are things that I have said from my own personal experience, you need it in your life survival toolkit. Like you can't get through life if you have no hope. That's really hard. It's hard to get through life if you have zero resilience. So you have to have those. But aside from that, I feel like this book, I hope it will generate this like greater appreciation for the outdoors. And I know that screen time is something that parents are always struggling with, especially with our new aged kids where you have everything entertainment is, swipe, 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 swipe. But I hope that by fostering this sort of curiosity about nature as a teacher, paying attention to nature to receive these messages, it's bringing an awareness that maybe over the years has become a little lost with the inclusion of technology in our everyday life. So I hope that this will strengthen the relationship again so that kids get a little bit more curious about, well, what can I learn from the sun today that shows up every single day without fail? How can I, be inspired by that? What do I learn from the spider who, you know, before the storm had put in all this work into building this web and then it gets washed away and then it rebuilds probably for the 100th time. That's resilience. Like, these are all really tough things to try to break down to a young kid. But when you paint the picture through these metaphors, and now they become curious, what other lessons can I learn? It's my hope that maybe they'll choose some outdoors time, and a little less, just swiping on the iPad. And that's what all we can do. Introduce more options to our kids and foster that curiosity for them that, there's more than one thing to do with your time. And now maybe
Yeah.
the outdoors will be more appealing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
well
mean,
said. I mean, it's a daily battle for me, I think, with my 11-year-old. I want to say she's probably the only one in her classroom. She's in fifth grade that doesn't have a phone, which is very hard to say. I don't think I
That's
had a
awesome.
phone.
That is awesome.
That's an
Yeah.
achievement right there.
Pretty proud for that one.
Yeah.
But it's crazy to think that, all of her little classmates have. I mean, I don't think I had a phone until I was about 14.
Yeah.
But in which case, I feel like I am, alone in this battle, really kind of trying to fight, that need and want that she does have because she does see her friends with those devices. And even if it's not the devices, it's on TV, it's Netflix, it's Hulu, it's YouTube Shorts. I mean, you
Yeah.
name it. It's constant bombardment of that, like Julie was saying. But we try to get some outside time. And I actually, which I was going to tell Monica this earlier, I read her a bit of the book, and it was interesting because again, an 11-year-old today is a lot different than, maybe when we were 11.
Uh-huh.
But it
Yeah.
was nice to see how receptive she was to it. She's still very kiddish at heart. So it was beautiful to see that she understood it. It was a reminder of what we preach at home. So well done. Well done with the book. I think you've done a phenomenal
What
job.
was her
So
favorite part? I would love to hear like
the
like
very beginning of it, actually,
yes.
just how you structure change and almost how that will affect the children. We've had personal changes in our lives that were unforeseen. So I think that it was a reminder of her that, this too shall pass.
Yes.
And,
Yeah.
like you said earlier, mind over matter.
That's right. I mean,
And that's like the key thing here, because even going back to your example about the tree in your front yard that was struck by lightning, most of the change is change that we don't want. And we feel like it is the end because this thing happened. It's not the way it was. We can't go on. I mean, to be quite honest, I felt like that after losing my son. Like that was grief is change that we do not want. And so I think that your story was so powerful in that I bet you at that time, if that tree could talk, that lightning strike felt like the end of it all, the end of the happy days, the end of the good old days. And it's easy in that moment of change that you don't want, that unwanted change, to want to give up. But look at what happens when you don't. And those are the lessons that nature really does show us if we're paying attention. If you don't give up, you grow this extra, I guess, limb, and you grow big and tall, and you have the support system of this brick from the builder. I mean, if you don't give up, you get to the summit that you're climbing up up there at the Grand Canyon. Like if you don't give up, when your spider web is washed away, you can do it again. Like all these moments of inspiration are there if we are slowed down enough to actually observe it and learn about it. And that's the other distinction. I mean, I've always appreciated nature. I grew up in New York. My family lived in the suburbs. So, nature was always around and I can appreciate its beauty. But it wasn't until after my grief that I think I was able to say I could learn from it. And appreciating the beauty versus actually learning and being inspired by it are two very different things. So I hope this book will help kids learn and be inspired by nature.
Renee, you talk about stubborn hope. And for those can you define stubborn hope in your words?
Yeah, stubborn hope is like, I almost like look at it as like your brain has two parts to it, or you're hearing these two voices in your head, the like what your eyes are showing you and like what likely because of the facts will happen, and then in spite of that, the voice that says but still, like you're still going to believe, you're still going to keep pushing forward. And there's always this in my head constant battle between the what do the facts say versus but still I'm going to push forward, I'm still going to believe, I'm not going to give up. I mean, to bring it back to my son, because the reason why I'm here as a children's book author is literally born out of that experience. And the reality was the type of brain cancer Blake had, there was no cure for it. And the survival rate was quite dismal. And so I was faced with those facts every single day of his treatment, but I never gave up hope with my son. It was such a stubborn hope that even when he relapsed, I somehow believed that maybe somewhere, somehow, like things would turn around. And look, it didn't turn around, but I'm so happy I never gave up on my son. And so I think that is what I see stubborn hope as. And if it doesn't work out the way you had hoped it will work out, unfortunately, that is life, and we don't always understand why that is. But I do think that there are benefits for having that stubborn hope. And in many ways, like that is, we're always looking for the miracle. The miracle is you having this stubborn hope and pushing on in spite of, and sometimes we are the thing like this. We're waiting for this grand thing. I was waiting for this grand thing of like this cure for my son. But the miracle was I survived that moment. I never gave up hope. I kept to the very end, like pushing for other options. Whereas other people may have just broken completely and froze and given up. And I didn't do that. And I think my son's short life was better because I never gave up hope on him.
I think moms especially have to have that. And when I was reading your story, so in my case, with my oldest son, he was born 10 weeks early. He was born with an infection. We were fortunate. He survived that. And then fast forward to he's 19 years old, he has an accident and traumatic brain injury.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I will never forget being in the ER, and the ER doctor comes up to me to explain to me what's happening with him. And the social worker came up to me and kept patting me on the back saying, "We are so sorry. We are so sorry." And in those moments, I'm thinking,
Yeah. Don't give
what are
up.
you sorry about? Like, and I
Right.
didn't give up, and he survived, thank the Lord, and
Right.
he is
Yes.
doing very, very well. He has a few little issues that he deals with, but we're very blessed in that way. It's possible it wouldn't have worked out that way. I mean, there's plenty of
Yeah.
parents that didn't happen for, but know the feeling of you got to have hope
Mm.
Yeah.
and stubborn hope.
Mhm.
And there are plenty of people that'll tell you. I
Yeah.
know when we were in the hospital, he was in a coma, and the nurse comes into me and she said, when people have these, even if they survive this, they have a totally different personality. Sometimes they get very violent. And I was like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
even if he survives, what's that going to look like?
Oh my goodness.
So, but you have to have that. You're absolutely
Yeah.
right. So, I mean, your story definitely touched me because I thankfully didn't lose my son, but I
Mm.
know the feeling of, I mean, you love your children more than anything. The idea of losing a child
Yeah.
is probably the
Yeah.
most difficult
Yeah.
thing that I can
I
think
mean,
of.
I love the fact that I'm a nurse, and the fact that parents like you all that come in and do have stubborn hope, you're still talking to your child even if they're unconscious, or and you're still believing in
Yes.
them, and you're still, there for them, and I'm going to hold you up while you're going through this. And no one escapes grief.
Mm.
So,
It's so funny because Julie, that is exactly what we did. I mean, long story short, Blake had a very bad reaction to one of his chemo treatments that led to him being on ECMO. So, for people that don't know, like his heart completely stopped. He had to be connected to a machine to keep it going. And I continued to read to Blake because he loves stories. And that was the moment. And this is how life is so weird and just odd, because sometimes, like, the worst thing, sometimes other things come out of it that are beautiful, that are unexpected. And so it was in that moment that I would continue to read to Blake because I wanted him to hear my voice if he could. I know that he was safe and I was there. But we just had like The Wheels on the Bus and like all these classics, but not what I needed for that moment. And going back to, like, when we read to our kids, we read for them, but sometimes we read for ourselves as well. And so that's when I started writing my first children's book, The Miracle Worker's Boy versus Beast. And that story is like a modern day David versus Goliath, in that this little boy is being haunted by this dragon, and he gets the courage to come face to face, and he gets victory. And I started writing that book because I needed that kind of message. And it's the same spirit of the nature of change. At the core of these books, it's inspiring that extra grit, mental grit, that I feel like we need to have. And as kids, I mean, we always focus on the golden rule, their ABCs and all of that. And I just think that this other component of starting to work that muscle of resilience and hope really early on, it's not too early to start that. And so I hope this will be like the thing that parents, like, this is a tool. It is a tool that you can start using to introduce some of these concepts so that by the time they're our age and they've really lived some life and experienced some rough things, they have worked that muscle in the gym
Yeah.
of,
I mean, that's really key because Costanza has an 11-year-old daughter. And do you see them teaching mindfulness, or is it mostly from home, of a book like this that could be in schools?
I'm lucky enough that, where she's been going to school now since Montessori, so since kindergarten, they really prioritize mental health.
Yes.
They offer yoga classes, plenty of outside time. Montessori in itself, the method that they use to teach, everything is a little bit different, and they accommodate to all types of children, whether you're a fast learner, a slow learner. So with all of that, all of her little classmates, and her included, are always encouraged to kind of do their best.
Yeah.
And yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You said working that muscle, and I wish for our kids. I mean, I think there was a point in time as parents of our generation, we sort of didn't want our kids to suffer at all. Like they couldn't even suffer not winning the trophy. So we all got trophies. So like with my son, when we were cleaning out his room, it's like, Chase, you've got 250 trophies. But he knew which ones he'd actually won versus the ones that were handed to him. But we didn't want him to suffer at all or feel anything sad or even in their grades. I would say I was guilty of that. Like, excuse me, why did he get a B? I mean, he should have gotten an A. So it would have been good when the pandemic hit. This group that was 18 years old, they had tough time with it. I mean,
Yeah.
we all did.
Yeah.
But if they'd had something like your book and your story and your understanding and say, this too shall pass.
Yes.
They've learned it since, but it wasn't an easy lesson the older you get. So I think the fact that you're offering it to, for younger kids to experience is
No, it's
I
fantastic.
mean,
really great.
it's almost like I moved all the time. So this book, like when the kids have a new house and they're going out to the backyard and you talk about the branch, and I mean, all of that is just like kids need to build that muscle.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
for sure. I cannot wait to give this book as a gift to everyone.
Yeah.
So
Awesome.
Well, and it's
Thank
such a
you.
great gift that you've written these books because Blake, who I understand loved to read and loved to be read
Mhm.
to, there are books there that were inspired by him to share with all of these kids. I mean, what a
Yeah.
great gift from him,
Yeah.
really, through
Yeah.
you.
Well, yeah. And that's the other side of this. I mean, this has been my way of continuing to mother Blake because these books are attached to him. And in my mind, this book and my very first book, The Miracle Workers, all of that is Blake's legacy. I am Blake's legacy. The person I have become in his absence is a testament to his impact on my life. And this book is an extension of that. So it really is, it makes me proud. But also, yeah, this is, I don't have him here in the physical, but this is how I continue to mother him. He's not here to make his own legacy in this world. And so as his mom, I'm carrying that flag for him in ways that he has inspired. He did that. I mean, he made that mark on me and on my heart and how I show up in this world. And I just hope that it's all good. I mean, like I said, I really do have a big mom heart. I love kids for so long, and my mom always predicted I would have a bunch. I only have one. I have just like one right now, my daughter Sienna, who's 2, and she's such a blessing in my life. But I love all kids. And so this really is also just a testament of my love for children and really caring about their well-being. Because like we all have experienced it's rough. So life can be, but there are good parts too. It's not all like, always a storm, but you definitely want them prepared for when the storm does come.
So,
Absolutely.
Renee, I have one quick question for you because I think
Yeah.
every mother has a story in them, like storytelling, right? And so I'm not going to lie, I did some woo-woo stuff in Sedona this weekend, and we talked a lot about storytelling. So I think everybody has like some type of story. When did you know or open yourself up to, I have this gift, I've got to get this out, I've got to write this? I would love to
Right.
know, what was the moment? Because sometimes people will close that off, not listen to that. For I guess it's a personal question. Like
Mm.
Yeah.
when did you hear that
Good question.
message?
Yeah. And you mean just in general of
Just in general
starting,
of
not
writing
this
your
book per
books, like
se.
that, yes. Like,
Okay.
how did you know this is how
Yeah.
you were going to express Blake's legacy?
Yeah, I didn't. I think it is happening in real time that
Mm,
things came together. But one thing is constant and true is that, look, even in my profession, I am a storyteller.
right.
I love to write. I love to tell stories. So that was just my underlying, I like to say, talent that I was blessed with. I'm a storyteller. I'm a communicator. So that has just been a definition of who I am. And I think that I observe the world in that way because like my brain just functions in that way. So I enjoyed reading to Blake. It was inspired by him because of his love of reading that I said I want to write a book for him and for our family. And so I think really all of that came out of being in the ICU at Johns Hopkins Hospital with Blake unconscious on ECMO. And we had the bright blaring lights and we had 24 hours around the clock nurses. And I wasn't sure if my son could hear me when I was reading to him, but I wanted to come up with a book that was going to give me that fighting spirit, which is The Miracle Workers. And I just wanted him to not cease hearing me read to him. And the other part of this is that I wanted this book, eventually that moment evolved into something else. I wanted not only to write this book, I wanted to write this book and then try to solve the problem. So 100% of the proceeds from the Miracle Workers was donated to pediatric brain cancer research. Gave all of that away. We gave 2 research grants to St. Jude. We gave another one to Sick Kids. I teamed up with the Pediatric Brain Tumor Foundation so that they could identify the best research to fund. So they were my partners in that. And so I think that my storytelling and how I fell into this, because I truly never had it on my bingo card to be a children's author, but I think it came out of being pushed into it in that I needed something that had a message that I felt was missing in my current collection of books for my son. And then I also ended up putting this book out for wider consumption because I wanted to solve a problem. And so the way I saw it was the funds from the sale of that book, which sold thousands of copies. I think if I remember correctly, it was like close to 10,000 copies, all went back to solving this problem, or trying to, of pediatric brain cancer, because I was so angry, and I still am, at cancer. And I don't have any qualms about saying I'm angry about cancer. I am, because it robbed me of the person who I love so dearly. And so with this new book, The Nature of Change, I continued that same spirit. I donated 14% of my advance to pediatric brain cancer research. I'm working with a traditional publisher. The first book was self-published, so I can give all the money away. Can't do that now. So I gave 14%, and I chose 14% because Blake's birthday is March 14th, and I always associate the 14 with him. So I took the 14% pledge, which is something I created. And I will continue to do that. I hope that this writing is not just to inspire, not just to teach lessons, but also eventually one day we have more cures. So I'll keep on pouring back into the research community. And I do that through writing
Yeah.
of these
That
books.
that is great. That is
Yeah.
great. Well, Renee, we have some other moms who have questions for you, and they are our
Yeah.
Zoomer moms. So welcome, Zoomer moms. Welcome to the
Yay, Zoomer
Moms
moms.
Club. Ladies, I will introduce each one of you. Tell us your name, where you're from, a little bit about yourself, and do you have a question for Renee? Kim, welcome to the Moms Club.
Hi, I'm happy to be here. My name's Kimberly. I live in the Redwood Forest in Northern California, so we're very immersed in nature over here. I think my question would be, let's see, do you have any plans for future kids' books, and what was the hardest part about doing your first one?
Um, I definitely love this space, because the way I see it is, what are all the lessons that I want to leave for my daughter, who's 2. I don't know how old your little one is.
She'll be 2 in June.
Okay.
So
So
yeah.
so what are the lessons that we want to leave for them, And then what are the
Yeah.
lessons that I want to leave behind for all the other 2-year-olds decades from now? So I'm into the idea of doing more books, just for the sole purpose of doing that, like having a collection of books that have these sort of lessons that I think every person needs to survive life.
Yeah.
And what was the hardest part about writing that book? Honestly, I thought that writing the book provided me with a great escape for what the reality of my life was at the time in writing that first book. So I didn't find it difficult. I found it quite lovely to have a place where I had control of the beginning, middle, and end of the story. In many ways, I was writing at that book at a time I had zero control over my life. To watch your kid with this disease and there be no cure. I mean, you can do nothing. And I'm a fixer by nature, and there was nothing I could do to fix it. But I could then write this story, and I had total control. And I think that gave me a little bit of comfort. So if anything, I think that writing it was so helpful to me, and this kind of storytelling continues to be helpful to me. So nothing really too hard. It's been a blessing to be able to write these stories.
That is great. And Kimberly, are you wearing a Woodlock Resort and Spa t-shirt?
I
You are. That is our favorite
Oh.
place, Woodlock. We love it. It is a awesome, amazing, as we say,
Yeah.
spa in the Poconos. So I loved your silhouette.
Nice.
A
Ooh, I'm
pretty
gonna have to look
pink.
that up.
You do,
I haven't heard
yes.
of
You
that.
absolutely want to go there.
Okay.
Susan, are you also wearing a Woodlock Resort? What is this today? We have all these women wearing Woodlock Resort and Spas shirts. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and do you have a question for Renee?
I do, and thank you so much. And I do want to thank Woodlock, who's sponsoring this amazing conversation. Thank you so much. So my name's Susan Gold. I'm an author and a mom. And I'm really profoundly grateful, Renee, that you took the trajectory you have through Blake's life experience. And my question is, at what point did you connect with the beauty of the gift that Blake gave you through his life path?
That's such a good question. Yeah, when did it transfer from like being my escape from this like really bad time in life to like it being this beautiful thing, like the beauty for the ashes moment? And I would say it's when going back to my first book and even for this second book, seeing the reach number one of the miracle workers and how it was received by young kids really warmed my heart because I felt like even though my son wasn't here, here it is, thousands of kids all across the country had this book that there was the protagonist's name, it was Blake, and so a piece of him. So many people were they had in their homes and they were reading that story. So that was a beautiful moment for me. And then for this story to be working with number one, this publisher to hopefully, inspire these three very important lessons in even more kids. And even to have you say his name here today. I mean, you don't know Blake, you've never met Blake, but for people to still be speaking about my son after I lost him in 2021, honestly, it warms my heart so much. So this moment, even here today, is the beauty for the ashes that he's inspiring or even having an impact, even though he's not here in his physical sense.
Yeah,
That's beautiful.
it is beautiful. Look who we have. Oh my goodness, another Zoomer. And could she be from Woodlock herself? Erica, welcome to the
Wonder what
Moms
gave it
Club.
away.
Yes.
Hi,
It's so
Erica.
nice to see. Thank you. It's so nice to see the t-shirts. I'm like, oh my gosh, I love it. So, hi everyone. I'm Erica. I'm the director of communications from Woodlock. We're a 3-property resort in the Pocono Mountains, and we would love to have you, Renee. If you're interested, we'll connect after. So, it has been incredible listening to your story. I've been touched on so many different levels, and I would, if I don't mention this, I feel like I would fail today to not mention at Woodlock, we're building the nation's first ever cancer respite center for guests who we work with a nonprofit out of Philadelphia area that helps guests who deal with terminal cancer and their families come for a respite. So we're in the process of building the first ever cancer respite center for guests and their families to come and have a break. And your story and your son's story, it's incredibly touching, and I feel honored to be here today with you. I think, and being a mom myself, I can't wait to read your book to my daughter as well. I think my question as a fellow mom, and what you've based your book on, and is nature still, do you still find a lot of healing and respite in nature? And what are some of your favorite sort of personal ways to reset with all you have going for you?
Yeah. Yes. I think that I will forever now. This is a door that has opened that will not shut, and that I will be continuously learning from nature. And it's so funny because when I was in high school, I used to run track, and then I was like, after cross country, this is not for me. I took up other extracurriculars, and I never really got back into running again until I would say last summer. So that's a very long gap because I didn't just graduate from high school. And going out to run has now, because, I'm not like sitting in zombie mode in my backyard anymore, like the way I was after losing Blake, but now I'm running. Um, and that is giving me the one-on-one with nature. And yes, I am still very much learning the lessons. The most recent one for my most recent run was I was watching the birds flying above me, and it was a really windy day, and they knew when to like flap those wings really hard and when to just let those wings out and soar. And sometimes we're like always in the flapping the wings really hard. And sometimes we need to have the confidence of when to be still and just soar, and just having that sort of confidence to know when to push and when to pause. I think that was my takeaway from just observing them. But every time I go for a run, it's like a new lesson. So yes, it's still, and it's actually my motivation to get back out there, because I'm like, what am I going to see today? What am I going to learn today? So yeah, it's still very much a learning sort of session for me. Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
great. And Renee, if you're interested, when Julie goes to Mount Everest, you can join her
I don't know
and
about
she
that.
can enjoy nature with Julie, because I'm sure that's your next
a little
big
bit
adventure.
beyond what I think I'm capable of. But,
When you said push and pause, I was like,
Yeah,
girl.
I was looking at her. Yeah, she just experienced that.
Yeah, every 10 steps. Yeah.
January, welcome to the Moms Club. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and do you have a question for Renee?
Yes, it's very, very nice to meet you. I love your story, as heartbreaking as it can be. I'm a mom to 4 adult children that we have lived our whole lives in the foothills of the Smoky Mountains. So we're no stranger to how fabulously healing and curing nature can be. We still, if we have birthday parties, it's what part of the mountains are we going to go to celebrate? So we've always embraced nature, and we've always learned from nature. People, not always so much. So my question is, I feel like when somebody that you love or even just care about some is going through something so heartbreaking and tragic, people tend to fall away because they do not know what to say or how to act. And when I've seen people that I care about going through something, I've always tried to not do that, even though it's hard. What is it people can say to you or to anybody going through something like that won't make it harder, won't create more pain, but actually does say, I'm here for you, and I don't know what to say, but I'm here?
Yeah. Yeah, I know. It's like, if I think back to my experience, I remember one of Blake's oncologists, and it was moments after he had passed, and we were like, as you would imagine any parent would be. And she came in, and she just sat. She didn't try to fix it. She didn't try to say something to make me feel better, because sometimes, depending on the situation, like, this is not a one size fits all answer for you, but speaking from my experience with the loss of a child, we often have this, like, we want to fix it. We want to say something, make them feel better, or make ourselves feel less like awkward in the situation. And sometimes it really is like doing what you say that you're already doing. It's just being there if the person wants to talk. Also, not being afraid to talk about that person. I think I met a lot of people who were scared to talk to me about Blake, because I think it made them uncomfortable because they were scared about making me cry. But the reality is, when you're going through something rough, you are not going to make me cry. I'm most likely emotional many times per day, because this loss is very present in my mind. So it's not like you're making me remember that my son died. I know, and I live with that every day and every moment. So I would say just being there, being present, and sometimes not asking, what can I do for you? That was always like an awkward question for me, because sometimes you're in such a fog of your loss that you don't even know what you need. And I really appreciated people who just did. They didn't necessarily ask. Like, I had friends that would just show up with meals. Here, or send me, because, it's just like they just did stuff and they didn't force me to think about what I need to then communicate it to you. So I think that, and just being there and present and not feeling like you have to try to fix it because it cannot be fixed. And I think those are the three things that we appreciate when you're going through something like that kind of loss.
Yeah, that's a great answer, and that was a great question because that's one of the most difficult things that any of us go through when we have a
I
friend
think
that's had a
it's
loss like that.
and correct me if I'm wrong, Renee, but it's a myth that people say, well, don't ask about the person who passed away or we want to talk about, Blake and, what kind of child he was and what he loved. And I think that correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's true. Like telling his story and keeping him, his spirit alive.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, look, even in the early days, even if you said his name, I might cry, but that didn't take away the fact that I don't want to act as if he never existed. Like, I wanted to talk about him. I enjoyed talking about the cute things that he would do, or, and I still to this day, like, when you say his name, like, it brings so much joy to my heart to hear total strangers say my son's name. So, I think we often like to talk about our loved ones. And so not being afraid of being there, and also not being afraid for you yourself to be uncomfortable, because
Right.
Yeah.
I feel like your discomfort is probably minimal to their feeling of profound loss.
Yeah.
So it's okay if you feel comfortable in that moment,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
said.
this has just been tremendous. Thank you so much, Zoomer moms. As always, you have been amazing, as we say here on the Moms Club, especially all dressed up in your Woodlock Resort shirts and
I
everything.
love it. All
Everybody
pink.
looks great. Thank you so much, Zoomer moms. And thank you so much, Renee. This has been
Yeah.
tremendous. Now, we can all see you on CNN, but where can we find your book?
Yeah, you can visit my website, reneemarsh.com. We have the list of all the retailers, but honestly, you can get The Nature of Change wherever books are sold. My first book, which I, published myself, you can only get that on reneemarsh.com. But yeah, you can find everything there about the mission and the 14% pledge, and how I hope that through writing these stories, I can one day say that I did something to move the needle with funding pediatric cancer research and arriving at cures. I really, really hope that could be my story once all is said and done.
And you will.
I feel strongly it will be.
Yeah,
So thank you so
absolutely.
much, Renee. And thank you to our sponsor, Woodlock, who we absolutely love. I cannot wait
I can't
to
either.
go and relax
Yay.
there and have a great...
I'll have to make another trip back to Texas now.
Absolutely. Well, then you'll have to, and then come up with me to New York, because
Yeah,
it's only
yeah,
the
yeah,
Poconos,
yeah.
so that'll be great. I cannot believe the time has passed, but I will.
gone by
Let's throw in
quick.
a few
I
things that you need to know, ladies. If you want to be a Zoomer mom like the women that were on the show today, go to our website, InsideTheMomsClub.com. There is a button that you just push that. You go and sign up and send us a film or send us a video, and you might be a Zoomer too and get to be on this show. Check us out on social media at Inside the Moms Club. We are on TikTok, Facebook,
All the things.
YouTube.
Yeah.
And most of it is me being really silly and ridiculous sometimes, portraying different types of moms. And
Very
sometimes that's
relatable
not always
moms.
relatable moms, yes. So, but it means I can never run for office because it's very embarrassing all the way around. So, but that's fine because I'm sending a good message to you ladies. And also check out our pop-ups. We have pop-ups all over the country where you can connect with other moms. So we invite you to do that too. Well, I cannot. Thank you so much, Constanza, for
Thank you
joining
guys so much
us.
for having
And
me. It was a pleasure.
thank you, Julie, for making it back from the Grand Canyon. From what you told me,
Stubborn hope.
well, you
Stubborn
told me
hope.
even that they wouldn't even take the donkeys down there. It was so bad, and yet you made mules.
This is
Oh,
key.
gosh.
If the mules aren't going, why am I going?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
So that's a question
I
for
did it,
another
though.
show. We will ask that question. We need to share with Constanza our motto.
Yes.
Our tagline, the thing that we live by here at the Moms Club. If you don't laugh sometimes, ladies,
You are gonna cry.
so Joe, you want to keep laughing. Keep laughing, and we'll see you next time inside the Moms Club.